Bob Dylan's first album of new material in 8 years came out on June 19th, just a few days ago, and I'm happy to report that it is magnificent. I want to explore it in a way that no one else is on this video, and like I've complained about in other videos, no, you're not going to hear the music. Just buy the music if you want to. I'm not going to rip it off to try to get views. But here are some reviews. If it were a painting, I'd call it a masterpiece. A vaccine against culture's shrinking expectations. 5 out of 5 stars, a long, magnificent riddle. Metacritic computes its average rating as 95 out of 100. I can't remember which review it was, but one said it's the great American novel in musical form. So you get the point. It's really good. By the way, the images you're going to see here are based on the songs and in order of the album. Anyway, there was a lot of pressure, I think, on Dylan, whether or not he would admit it or even knew or cared, but imagine a musician making their first album, writing their first songs since winning the Nobel Prize in Literature. To call that unprecedented is a fine understatement. But he rose to the occasion, and let's talk about how I've talked in my Dylan videos before, previous videos, about how it's really hard to succinctly describe what he's doing in just one song. So here I'm trying to take on an album. First of all, it's a cohesive whole. It really does work like a book with chapters all telling a story and following a protagonist. It's more imprecise than that, of course, because these are songs, but also it's not as straightforward as like a rock opera. It's much more mysterious than that. It's more abstract, more impressionistic. It's also not pompous. It's sardonic, funny, and absurdist at times. And if you take all of those things I just said, you might notice that they're reflected in Dylan's visual art. His paintings are works of impressionism, and his kind of compositions, his pop culture pastiche compositions, are funny and bizarre. So that's the kind of story it is, and what the story is. And again, he's been doing this in recent albums. You kind of feel like you're following someone going through today's world in a Gulliver's Travels, maybe Voltaire's Candide, or Alice in Wonderland kind of way. So we see the madness of the world, the heartache, but there's also the personal journey taking place, and then that seems to blend through to Dylan himself often, especially as he talks more and more about mortality late in life in these songs. But this is also where the love songs come into play. And when we talk about the world that the protagonist is going through, it's a dreamlike, satirical version of reality, like in some of those literary examples I mentioned. I really think that's kind of what's going on there. But the other thing is, and I'm very glad a couple of reviews caught on to this, time is not linear. And that's really important to how Dylan, apparently experiences the world, or at least that's what comes out in the songs. So they're steeped in the ancient past, in the conventions of the 19th century, and then in the kind of pop culture world of the 1950s and 60s, but more the 50s. It's always interesting that Dylan was, never fully embraced his generation's trappings. He seems to embrace his parents' generation's trappings more than anything else. And then on top of that, you have the current events. And those are always of the least importance and just slyly alluded to, like in False Prophets. See my video on that song, because the present is just the result of the past and an echo of it, and that's why you have two presidential assassinations on this album, McKinley's and JFK's. So we'll return to that, but here's what I'm going to do. I have 2 slides of lyrics for each song in the album, and I'm going to read just certain parts of each. I think the effect is pretty interesting and telling. If you don't like my reading voice, tough luck, it's the only one I have. Today, tomorrow, and yesterday too. The flowers are dying like all things do. Follow me close, I'm going to Bali Nali. I'll lose my mind if you don't come with me. I fuss with my hair and I fight blood feuds. I contain multitudes. I'm just like Anne Frank, like Indiana Jones, and them British bad boys, the Rolling Stones. I sing songs of experience like William Blake. I have no apologies to make. Everything's flowing all at the same time. I live on a boulevard of crime. I know how it happened. I saw it begin. I opened my heart to the world, and the world came in. Put out your hand, there's nothing to hold. Open your mouth, I'll stuff it with gold. Oh, you poor devil, look up if you will. The city of God is there on the hill. Looking for the necessary body parts, limbs and livers and brains and hearts. I'll bring someone to life is what I want to do. I want to create my own version of you. I'll mix the Scarface Pacino and the Godfather Brando, mix it up in a tank and get a robot commando. Can you look at my face with your sightless eyes? Can you cross your heart and hope to die? I'll bring someone to life, someone for real, someone who feels the way that I feel. I'm sitting on my terrace, lost in the stars, listening to the sounds of the sad guitars. Been thinking it all over and I've thought it all through. I've made up my mind to give myself to you. Well, my heart's like a river that sings. Just takes a while to realize things. I've seen the sunrise, I've seen the dawn. I'll lay down beside you when everyone's gone. Black Rider, you've been living too hard. Been up all night, have to stay on your guard. The road that you're on, same road that you know, just not the same as it was a minute ago. Let me go through, open the door. My soul is distressed, my mind is at war. Where the Jews and Catholics and the Muslims all pray. Goodbye, Jimmy Reed indeed. Give me that old-time religion, it's just what I need. God be with you, brother dear. If you don't mind me asking, what brings you here? Oh, nothing much. I'm just looking for the man. Need to see where he's lying in this lost land. Sing of the honor and fate and glory be. Mother of muses, sing for me. Sing of the heroes who stood alone, whose names are engraved on tablets of stone, who struggled with pain so the world could go free. Mother of muses, sing for me. I got up early so I can greet the goddess of the dawn. I've painted my wagon, abandoned all hope, and I crossed the Rubicon. I feel the Holy Spirit inside, see the light that freedom gives. I believe it's in the reach of every man who lives. McKinley hollered, McKinley squalled. Doctor said, McKinley, death is on the wall. From down in the boondocks, way down in Key West, I'm searching for love, for inspiration on that pirate radio station coming out of Luxembourg and Budapest. I've never lived in the land of Oz, or wasted my time with an unworthy cause. Down in the flatlands, way down in Key West, well, the fishtail palms and the orchid trees, they can give you that bleeding heart disease. The day that they blew out the brains of the king, thousands were watching, no one saw a thing. Wolfman Jack, he's speaking in tongues. He's going on and on at the top of his lungs. Play me a song, Mr. Wolfman Jack. Play it for me in my long Cadillac. Play it a James II, play it Rather Go Blind. Play it for the man with the telepathic mind. Play John Lee Hooker, play Scratch My Back. Play it for that strip club owner named Jack. So that's a glimpse of the mad world that Dylan takes us through. He does not reference this movie here, but I like the description, and this movie is from 1963, which is, of course, the pivotal year on the album because of the assassination of JFK. It was also a pivotal year for Dylan's career because The Free Will and Bob Dylan came out. So he was just starting his journey as the chronicler of the mad world, a world that was about to get much madder, much crazier with the assassination of JFK and the rest of the 60s. But despite being the troubadour of the 20th century, he didn't sing about the assassination until the 21st century, well over half a century later. And that takes us back to this album and how in it time is just one continuum. And that's why you have Jimmy Reed and Ancient Religions. One more thing to layer in here is that the fictional world and the real world are of equal importance. So that's why you have Frankenstein and, Scarface and The Godfather. And with that final element in place, I think that's one way to grapple with the album, and that's why you get, the ancient Greek muses seen here, and the assassination of President McKinley. Our character sees it all happening at once, even though he's moving forward, right, living life, falling in love, trying to fall in love, grappling with death, seeing the masses fall for false idols, wars and pandemics. Notice the needle on the artwork for False Prophet, trying to find an escape, like a mythical version of Key West. And through it all, seeing a world that's kind of lost, right? A world that's in, quote, a slow decay, end quote, even though that line in particular was about the United States. President Kennedy is dying, Dylan is dying, we're all dying, quote, like all things do, end quote. And Dylan's solace for that is art. Vulgar and refined, especially popular art, right? There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, he loves it. It's especially the popular art of the past. And let's be honest, that's because it's way better than today's popular art, and that makes sense in a world that's in a decay. And that's why Wolfman Jack is playing songs. He's playing them for us, for the lost world, for a lost president. And these are songs played at a funeral, but it's great music. And that's why those songs are played, metaphorically, at the end of the last song of the album. And that album is Bob Dylan's Rough and Rowdy Ways. That's my take on it. Thanks.